talking basketball. They're fucking dumb as shit. They don't know basketball, but they will make dumb ass jokes.
Hello and welcome to Pod Don't Lie. I'm so happy to be joined by our guest today. Unfortunately, before I introduce him, I have to tell you that Stavi is having a hell travel day, so he was really excited to be here, and he can't because you're a guy we talk about a ton. Biggest Blazers fan in the history, head writer for Corden, hilarious stand-up. Give it up for Ian Karmel to our listeners.
You just had a hilarious set on our show the other day. It was so great to see you in person.
I was excited to see you. I knew when I do it, I was like, I'll get to see like what you've done Conan, so I know you're like, I'll get to see like Laurie Kilmartin and Brian Kiley, and it's like that's like a fun part. It's like, oh, thank God, because that's bringing a guest during COVID times to anything is a nightmare.
They have to test, right? And have to go through all these hoops and everything.
I was so stressed, man. I almost did it in, I think, early January. I almost did Corden instead. And then I was like, I can't do that date. And he tested positive. I was like, thank God I didn't. That would have been the worst.
Now,
I'm just in LA.
Just hanging out with nothing to do. He's had COVID now. We should just be able to, we should have an open, green room. Anyone should be able to come at this point. What, are we going to get him sick again? He's not going to get sick.
Has everyone had it there? Or have you had it?
I never had it. I'm starting to think that whatever this blood type shit, I read some theory that if you have type O positive blood, it's harder to get. Because I've never had COVID. I'm vaccinated and boosted, but I've been doing shit.
Yeah.
I went to I was in New York. I went to a Broadway play and
What'd you see?
I saw Company with.
It's incredible.
It's so good.
It's so good.
It's so good. This is what I think we should probably just spend the whole thing talking about Broadway productions we've seen. The staging
mocks
was amazing.
Me for being a New York Broadway fan, but Sondheim's R.I.P. Sondheim.
R.I.P. Sondheim.
Company is the greatest New York play. I mean, I know West Side Story, but Company is so fun.
West Side Story is Romeo and Juliet set in New York. Company is a play about, being in New York, I'm sure, but also just being single and just that experience. It's so good. The songs are so good. The notion of being that, having friends who are in relationships and trying to set you up and still going to parties with them, extending a social life into your 30s. It's so good. And the staging of it was so good. The whole,
it was beautiful
stuff coming up and that the woman, I forget her name, who plays
Bobby.
Was so great, whatever her name is.
So good, man. Katrina
Why would
Lank.
you? Yeah, that's right, Katrina Lank. Stav gives you shit for that. You live in New York City. Why would you go
I
to
remember
Broadway shows?
raving about Hamilton, and he was like, "Okay." I think he would like it. I think if he just kind of if I pushed him into going, maybe that'll be my mission. Is I make Stav go see Hamilton.
You should absolutely make him go see him. I was very defensive about Hamilton. Stav before I was like, this is stupid. It's rap about history. It felt very improv group in high school kind of type shit. And then I didn't even go see it in person. I saw the Disney Plus and I was like, I love this.
It's incredible. I also realized I'd be so much smarter if there was more rap history. I would just know so much more.
Because now you know Lafayette. You know these people. And you're like, oh, that's that street I fucking want.
I started reading a book about it, and I was like, oh, Hercules Mulligan. This is cool. I know the names now.
I know that, dude. I feel too, with the thing with Broadway is that once, you have to square yourself with the idea that it is going to be, no matter what, corny. It's going to be corny.
Sure.
The best Broadway show is still corny. Fun Home, you know what I mean, is going to be corny, even though it's about suicide and homosexuality. Everything is going to be corny.
It's called Fun Home?
Fun Home, yeah.
I don't know it.
Oh, it's really good, but again, it's a musical, but it's dark. It deals with dark subjects, but it's corny because you can't have people earnestly singing dialogue without it being corny. So accept that it's going to be corny and then go have a good fucking time. You know what I mean? You're eating dinner at the Cheesecake Factory, but that makes it seem like it's shit quality. it's silly. You're eating an ice
Yeah.
cream sundae. It's gonna be silly no matter what. But it's so fun. I fucking love it.
I love it.
Yeah.
So you went to Broadway, but that's like masked still. They're being pretty cautious. Like I went to a Nets game last Thursday. No one wears a mask. I mean, it's not masked anymore. It's that's where I think about like, well, maybe I was just in Orlando. No one wears a mask there, but like New Yorkers are getting annoyed. So you know. I remember going to a game a few months ago, and me and my brother were like the only people in masks, and now I'm just like, fuck it, I'm on board. What the hell?
Well, yeah, it's like I guess we're just slowly taking them all off, and then the numbers keep going down anyway because they're not like it's nearing herd immunity or something like that. I went to a Blazer game a couple months ago, and it was like it's the if you have a drink or food, you don't have to wear it, and everybody's always holding a drink or food. So what are we doing? You know,
I know. It's like same with flights. It's like I feel so bad for these flight attendants. Especially, I flew back from Orlando today. You should make double on that flight. That is like Kid Vegas. That is a horrible flight. And I was miserable. Like I was with my friend Gary Veter, and he's texting me. He's a couple rows ahead of me. He goes, I want to die. He's like, this is horrible. He's like, no one parents. It's like a 45-minute boarding because of all the old people too. It's a rough one.
Right, it's only fucking seniors and people with kids.
Yeah.
And then the two of you on that plane. Who else would go to Orlando?
Yeah, it was pretty brutal. And it's not like, that city is not exactly comedy paradise to begin with. Like,
well, who lives in Orlando?
Exactly. Markel Fultz. I don't know who else.
No judgment or anything like that. But like, what is the? I guess
it's a weird part of Florida
to
live in.
Yeah.
People
have
know.
to live everywhere, but there just seems something very weird about like, I've never met anyone who grew up in Orlando.
Yeah, Boca, you hear Miami, obviously, Tampa, Fort Lauderdale, but then, it was. You get a gift show every once in a while, but man, that late show last night, I was like, I'm tired.
Yeah,
This is tough. What I want to ask you about the Blazers because you're like the biggest Blazers. Who did you see him against, and when was it?
Jesus, who did I see him against? We won. It was here. Let me look at my phone. It was a while ago. It was early in the season.
You had CJ and
we had it was a full battery. CJ, Dame, I think Nurk might have even been playing. This was like early in the season when we went.
Did you have high hopes for this season before?
I don't know. I had kind of made peace with. It felt like a last hurrah season, no matter what.
Yeah.
To me, like even at the beginning of the season, I was like, "This is one more bite at the apple." Like, they're not going to run this lineup back again. And it was when we still had Neil Olshey. It was before he had been fired and everything like that. So I thought he might try trading people as like a last ditch effort, which didn't end up happening.
Would you have wanted them to take a swing for Ben Simmons or no?
Yeah.
Even Dame included?
Not Dame. No, not Dame.
Yeah.
Because without Dame, I feel like the only way you could get any use out of Ben Simmons in Portland is if you paired him with Damian Lillard, because then you have a chance to like win in the next 3 years together. There's no way he would stay in Portland to then build around him. Like, I just don't see that. Maybe it's close enough to LA, but I feel like he's jetting no matter what. Like any small market that traded for Ben Simmons was only going to rent him for the remainder of his contract, which might have been 3 years, but I didn't like.
He's got a while. I think. I think it's 3 or 4 on it. It's at least 3.
I don't think in those 4 years we would have been able to build like a winning team around him.
Portland would have been a good home for him, though. He's like a sensitive guy. I feel like they're understanding of that. Brooklyn also is a good home for him. It's low, even though it's New York. It's kind of weirdly a low pressure scenario.
Completely low pressure. I mean, like, if it goes wrong,
if Kyrie plays,
what do you like? How did like Nets fans? Do you know any Nets fans?
No, I hate them. I really hate Nets fans. So I went to the game because they were playing Miami, and I was with Liz, who runs the Comedy Cellar, and Phil Hanley and Rachel Feinstein, who are kind of just like there for the fun of it, rather.
Yeah.
You know, Liz is a diehard Heat fan. She is, you know, wearing a Udonis Haslam shirt. Like, she's
amazing.
hardcore.
Yeah.
So we're at the game, and I'm all pumped up to see Jimmy Butler live. Never seen him live.
Yeah.
And I love Kyle Lowry. They're both not playing. So I'm like, oh, crap. At least KD is playing. That was like my...
Was
thank
Bam
God.
playing?
Bam
Yeah.
lit it up. Bam had the
amazing.
game of the night. They've got some young guys. Martin on the Heat is really good.
Yeah.
Tyler Hero can really, really play.
Right? He's one of those guys where like the hype got so big that then when he was, even when the hype was crazy, he was never like putting up insane numbers.
Until
But
the
then
bubble.
Until the bubble.
Yeah.
But then the hype outpaced him. But then he was like, oh no, he doesn't suck. He just wasn't as good as like, he wasn't white Jesus. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
now he's like catching up to it. Kyle Guy's pretty good too. They
Yeah.
have to like everyone on that team contributes.
They're like the Spurs, the way the Spurs used to be. And I think Tyler Hero had that sophomore slump because he was just like, I'm going to enjoy Miami. I think that happens in Miami.
I think you're probably right. Yeah.
But Bam he's a beast. And then you realize watching the Nets, they can't defend a really good post player. They can't defend a guy who attacks. Because they have Andre Drummond on him, who looks like out of shape and doesn't look right. I don't know.
If only they'd had like a rangy 7-footer who could play defense, you know, and just like the kind of person, someone like Jared Allen, you know, like someone who they could throw in there.
He's a beast.
Those fucking idiots. He's so good.
Beast. Well, it's got him Harden though, right? I mean, who they then lost.
Did it? Because it was like he was like a throw-in. Like I don't know.
I think they knew he was going to be. I mean, I think he was the
Yeah.
best player they traded, and people, you know, I think he had more value than LeVert.
I can't believe Houston didn't hold on to it. Just like somebody, just
I know.
because he just got flipped for that first. The Brooklyn is so weird because it's so much talent on a team that like I know they technically play in Brooklyn, but it feels like they only play on the internet. Like
They suck. The fans
like
are horrible. The fans are like, my friend said that, Phil Hanley says, these fans feel like they're doing impressions of how they think fans should sound.
Yeah.
They're just chanting out like Brooklyn. It's like, it's lame. They're not,
that.
I don't know any, the only guy I know who's a Nets fan a little bit is a friend of mine who grew up in Jersey.
Yeah.
But that I respect at least.
Right, because he liked him when Drazen Petrovic was there.
That's a Nets fan. If you were a Kendall Gill Nets fan, I'll give you love. But if you came along, even if you look, it was tough being a Knicks fan in the early aughts when the Nets had Jason Kidd.
Yeah.
And they just killed us, man.
Those were great teams with Richard Jefferson and like Kenyon Martin was on those teams too,
Oh my
right?
God, dude.
They were
killer
fun teams, man.
Yeah.
They were great.
What do you think? Oh, sorry. What were you saying?
Go ahead, please.
Oh, I want to know. I want your Blazers take because I mean, like CJ was like a dude you liked a lot. I know, and he was a fan favorite, and he's just like a likable dude. So you guys lose CJ, and it's like, were you happy with that payout with what you got back for that?
No, I was.
It's pretty rough.
I was overwhelmed at first by being grateful that period was over because it really felt like re-breaking a bone that had healed wrong. You know what I mean? Where it was like, this isn't right. Because we had taken that like tandem. Norm Powell made so much fucking money and CJ made so much fucking money that I loved these guys. And like, obviously I'm not like looking at the books thinking like, oh, it's an expensive team. They're not as fun to watch. Like, I don't give a fuck outside of how it like inhibits their ability to do other things, which it just was like, we had tried every out in that situation. We had tried to go, flip trades for like wing players. We had tried bring just like every different iteration of building around those two dudes. I feel like we had tried to do.
Yeah, you had like the Aminu, Evan Turner years.
Right,
I mean,
we had those.
That was really a better time for you, you know?
It really was. Those are the years when we like made it to like the Western Conference Finals and stuff like that. Too. Like we tried like all these different combinations of players and we were just we had no outs. We had no outs as a team at that point. And I'm glad they didn't trade Dame because I do think he's a guy who's so good that we can retool around him. And I'm glad like we're giving that a try. like you can get guys like CJ in Portland. CJ is really good, and like I'll miss him, and like what he's doing in New Orleans is great. But like Damian Lillard is a unique talent, and like as much as like bottoming out,
he and CJ didn't fit. It never the two guys in the backcourt who don't play defense in the modern NBA doesn't work.
It's just never going to work. It was never going to work. And like I know him and Dame were like really good friends and everything like that, but like fucking Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook were good friends too. You know what I mean? Like, people are good friends, and Dame is going to be good friends with anybody.
He's that dude. And that's not to say they don't have a special bond, but Dame is that dude who will, if you make the effort, especially now that he's the leader, he's making the. I relate what you're saying about like taking a deep breath, because like as a Knicks fan, there is something calming about knowing you're not going to really win. Like, it's like playing $15 blackjack as opposed to like $300, where you're like $300. Right. I'm gonna lose my mind. $1,500, I could give it an hour, you know, or $15, not
$15. Yeah,
not $1,500.
$1,500 a hand, dude.
The Orlando Improv ain't paying that well.
That's what you need to feel anything anymore. You're going to the Hard Rock, absolutely. I see what that would.
Dude, the Knicks have just full on like tanked, where it's like you guys just crushed us. I watched that game. We were killing you. Anthony Simons, like maybe he's the other backcourt guy, man. He's got a big wingspan. I mean, that's like I feel two ways about it. Like I'm stoked. He does have a big wingspan. He's bigger than CJ. He already seems like he's better at defense than CJ. But I'm like, did we just fucking lock ourselves into another two small guards in the backcourt situation? He is small.
We're gonna have to pay him again. He's small. He's bulkier. But like now it feels like it's like back to the same fucking situation. It's gonna be like Dame and Anthony Hardaway now. Like,
do you think he's
Anthony Simons?
If it was Anthony Hardaway, it's over.
That's who we need.
Do you think he might be most improved player?
I think they're probably gonna give it to John Morant again, because they're not gonna give him the MVP. I bet that's exactly what they're gonna do.
I think it's almost, Stav would say it's disrespectful to give a top 5 MVP candidate a most improved, though.
I think it is too, but I think that like the NBA generations thing is so fucked up right now because players are playing so long, like LeBron, and like when Kareem Abdul-Jabbar played until he was like 40, that was like weird. You know what I mean? Like it was like weird that this dude was still out there doing that. But like
Robert Parrish was another one where you're
Robert Parrish,
I was like, I'm too young to have seen Robert Parrish play. That's insane that I saw him play.
We never should have. He should have only been remembered through low resolution pictures. But like the dudes are playing so long now that I feel like it's fucking up our perception. Like John Morant we should all just be thinking of him like as one of the NBA's best players. But I feel like we perceive of him as like, he's one of the NBA's best players, and just wait till you see what he's going to do. He's already doing it right now, but it's like he's this kid who's doing it. He's like this young kid. So I don't think like...
I think he's top 5 MVP candidate this year. So I don't think they're going to give him most improved. I think he's too good.
Do you think he'll finish in the top 5 for MVP?
Well, it's going to be Embiid is 1, Jokic is 2, I think, and then maybe Giannis, and then... Then either... I mean, I don't think LeBron or Durant played enough games, and they're too bad, the team. So
no, but LeBron might catch one anyway, especially if he's going to like go for 50 a few more times.
I don't know.
That media machine is so powerful.
Steph is in the convo, but I think Ja is kind of catching on him. DeMar DeRozan's in the convo.
DeMar DeRozan's up there. Luka too is like really coming on.
Luka's very valuable too. That team, you know,
they're wild. It's wild. What he did to LeBron the other night is crazy.
Did you see LeBron last night against? Did you watch that game?
I didn't watch the game. No.
Oh my god, dude!
I think crazy. What did I watch instead? I watched L.A. Confidential for the first time.
That's a great movie.
It's a great fucking movie. I'd never seen. I think I had seen it, but I was so stoned that I fell asleep halfway through and like didn't remember what had happened. Yeah. So I like sat down and like earnestly watched it last night. It was fantastic.
That last line: some men get it all, others get a hooker and a free trip to Arizona. Ooh, noir.
God, so good.
Love it.
So fucking good.
Great movie.
I can't watch the Lakers anymore. I've watched them a bunch this year because they're on like in LA all the time. But like I do have a one like Laker theory I want to pitch to you
Hit me.
because like having LeBron James and Russell Westbrook go there at first like hurt my feelings as a lifelong Laker hater. And as someone who liked LeBron and liked Russell Westbrook, like I enjoyed watching them play basketball. I thought it was really fun. But having them go to the Lakers while their skills are diminishing and they're kind of like falling apart as basketball players, like I kind of think of the Lakers as like a farm upstate where like your parents would send like a sick dog. You know, they would say it like, oh no, you want to go live on a farm upstate. Then I don't have to think of them as like diminished, dying basketball players. They're just on the Lakers where I don't have to like give a fuck about them. I think we should send. Now I kind of hope Damian Lillard, when his skills do start to like fade, goes to the Lakers when he's just like 38 years old.
You get to go see him live?
I could go see him live, but also I hate him anyway. So it's now like if I hate these people while their skills are diminishing, I can get one last hit of joy.
True.
Because like
True.
if Russell Westbrook was like on the Wizards still, or if he was like on another team that I like was ambivalent about and he sucked, I think it would make me sad that I would be aware of my own mortality. His skills are fading. We're all getting older. He can't attack the rim anymore. But that it's happening on the Lakers, I'm like, oh, it's so fun to watch Russell Westbrook struggle now that I'm like getting one last use out of him. You know what I mean? As somebody who enjoys basketball.
It's so true. I mean, it's what's weird about Westbrook is he still can attack the rim, but his jump shot keeps getting worse. Like that's what's crazy about him to me.
Yeah, it just it does. I wonder if he needs like LASIK eye surgery or something like that.
Wouldn't that be crazy if he just that's all he needed and he became Steph
and then he's back? Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like AD is like a young dog that got on the wrong bus and he's just at this farm upstate. God. Like, why am I?
I know.
Why am I here? It's crazy that I was thinking about it because I was watching, I was flying back today. So I was on one of those flights where you could watch the game, which I was like, this is the best. Thank God.
That's the best.
And all the analysts, Stephen A. and Mike Greenberg and all these guys, and they're talking about, I think the point that they were trying to make is if the Lakers catch the Grizzlies in the first round and it's Ja versus, but they said, if AD's healthy, the Lakers have two of the three best players on the court and the veteran savvy. But at the same time, LeBron, he's obviously the guy you want. But I was thinking about like AD, if he's at his full health, this is how much we underrate him.
I know. He is amazing, but he like it's weird. It's weird. Like maybe he should only play 30 games a season. Yeah. Maybe he should like start playing now every year. Like maybe they like what the Lakers thought they were doing with Russell Westbrook, where it was like he's going to take minutes off of LeBron's legs and everything like that. Maybe there are just a class of NBA players like Kawhi Leonard, Anthony Davis, where they should just play 30 games a season.
Porzingis is another one.
Porzingis, where they should like starting around like early March. They don't play back-to-backs. They just start getting warmed up. And then by the time the playoffs roll around, and we should eliminate the regular season too. I guess it would be like the other side of that. But you're right.
I get so bummed. Don't you get bummed when you go to a game and you're expecting to see, like I was excited to see Jimmy and Lowry, and it's just like, I think Lowry's hurt. But Jimmy, I think, was on a back-to-back, and they were like, it's,
I think like one of three things needs to happen. Either they need to make the season shorter, and we just need to deal with that and like realize that we aren't going to compare 2023 seasons to like 1981 seasons, and we'll never be able to do that again. But you'll get to see Jimmy Butler every time. Or we need to make medical technology a little bit better, or it needs to be a little bit worse.
Yeah.
Because if it's a little bit worse, then Anthony Davis would have had to retire 2 years ago, and there'd be no tantalization. There'd be no threat of him ever playing a game. You know what I mean? Chris Paul wouldn't be in the league anymore.
He's another one.
Because he'd just be retired. Because they never could have like repaired his ankle or whatever.
He's such a badass that when he gets hurt, he doesn't look in pain. He just looks angry.
He looks angry. Yeah. He just gets more and more mad.
He's just looking at his like stupid thumb. It's like insane.
His thumb failed him. When he played in the All-Star game, I was like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? Like his arm was like hanging down by his side.
He wanted that assist. He wanted that record.
He's fucking fantastic.
Do you
But
think?
like, or we need to let them use like HGH and steroids even more than they already are.
For sure.
And all, to where it's like, okay, we're expecting them to play 82 games against other unicorns every day. Like, just pump them full of drugs if they want to. You know what I mean? Like,
It's adding to LeBron's greatness that he's playing. I mean, I know he missed time this year, but like, I know, he's 37. Like, I see Giannis's body, and I'm like, he kind of snapped his leg back last year. That would have ended another dude's at least a year and a half of his career.
Oh, it would have been over. That was insane. How did that happen? What, like, that he came back? I understand how the injury happened, but
I think it's like the plot of Damn Yankees. I think a devil showed up and he made a deal. And was like, just give me this ring. I could have teamed up with the Warriors, and the devil was like, all right, even that would be pretty fucked up.
That's a good point. Yeah.
The Warriors too. Like, it's crazy that the Warriors without Draymond aren't that good.
Isn't that weird that he's like this the straw that stirs that drink? I guess it makes sense. That Draymond really makes you realize how much of the game can be mental, because like you look at him and like he did. I mean, I went to a birthday party this year that LeBron was at, and that Draymond showed up to, and like LeBron was hanging out, and I'm like, that's LeBron James. That's an NBA basketball player. He's a fucking NBA basketball player. And Russell Westbrook was there, and I was like, that guy looks like a fucking athlete. You can just tell by the way they walk around, the way they carry themselves, the way they're built. And then Draymond was there, and Draymond looked like one of the other comedians who was like at the birthday party. Like, he was tall. He was taller than everybody else, but like, he didn't really move like an athlete.
Wow.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, you didn't look at him and you were like, that's a fucking like NBA basketball player. So the fact that he can just like go out there on the court and like make that team full of other like world-class athletes work is fucking amazing.
You're right that it's mental.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, he really is just like fearless. It's kind of like a comic who like goes up and kills with like persona. Like, you don't know what the jokes are, but you're like, his personality is just like, they love him. That's Draymond. He's just killing.
You can't argue that it works.
Yeah.
The crowd had a good time. Yeah. That is. He's just out there figuring it out. He like knows. I guess if like, you know, if you pass a ball to a certain person while they're making a cut, if you know that he gets that ball, which is going to pull this defender over here, which means that guy's going to overcompensate that way, which is going to free this person up. And if you go set this screen after you pass it, then all of a sudden that guy will be open. Andrew Wiggins will be on the All-Star team because of you. And you're Draymond Green. You're like, so if you can understand like the game like that, I guess that's the other thing about LeBron too, right? Is like, he's like top 1% of top 1% level athlete, but combined with being like having Draymond's brain is, you know what I mean? That's what sets him apart from like Tracy McGrady, right? Who was also like a world-class athlete.
Yeah.
And
injuries and the body, the durability. Because I really think T-Mac just like never, the 1 year, he had like 2 years maybe on the Rockets where I was like, this team is dangerous. But then,
him and Yao Ming. So it was like, you were never, it was like the Lakers now, except both those guys were in their prime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
dude, that Magic team was cool as shit, though. They had Rafer Alston and Shane Battier. That was like a well put together team.
Remember when Rafer Alston made it to the fucking NBA? Skip to my Lou?
There should be a movie about that. There's all these sports movies. That's a cool movie.
Where is that movie?
He got cut like 15 times, I think, before he made it.
Yeah, and then like finally stuck. And then he was like in the NBA for a few years. That was like,
he was a good player.
The professor from And One, like it was all of a sudden on one of those like good Sacramento Kings teams.
Yeah, he was awesome.
Yeah, he was great.
I was just in Sacramento, and like, man, those fans are depressed. They are like, I was getting heckled at shows with fans who were like, what are we doing? They got rid of Halliburton. That kid was awesome.
That was insane. For Domantas Sabonis, who is just a loose hand job of an NBA player. Like, he's good, like it's fine, like you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, sure,
it's better than nothing, but it's like you're like,
it's a loose hand job. There's no lotion. He'll get the job done.
She doesn't like
we
you
might be
that
being
much.
hard on him. He was an all-star.
He's really good, but like that's not. It's like the most Sacramento thing you could do. he's not gonna change anything. You know,
And
it's not
Halliburton,
gonna-
like that kid, we're talking about IQ. For a young kid, his IQ seems pretty solid.
yeah, and at least he's young and still fairly cheap. I mean, like, they just can't fucking win. Because I also thought De'Aaron Fox was going to be good, and then like apparently he's not that good either.
Well, he can't shoot, but
He can't
Halliburton
shoot,
can
yeah.
shoot. But you know what, man? Like, that kid wanted to be in Sacramento, Halliburton. He was mad they traded him. He was like, I was all like, do you know how hard that is to find? I was there for 2.5 days, and I was like, get me the fuck out of here. That's a tough city.
I love the people in Sacramento. I have friends who are from Sacramento. I hate that place.
Yeah, it's
so
tough. There's good parts, but as a whole, it's tough.
And I think living there is probably way better than visiting there because there's just absolutely nothing to do when you visit. But like, yeah, I can speak from experience being from Portland, Oregon, which is a much more visitable and livable place, I think, even than Sacramento. If you find somebody who wants an NBA player who wants to like stay there, you have to hold on to them like fucking like salvation. You know what I mean? Like they are extremely rare.
Well, Dame is. I feel like I don't know though. You guys, CJ seemed like he wanted to be there. Dame wanted to be there.
CJ bought a winery. CJ owns a winery like in the Willamette Valley. He's the kind of NBA player who does want to stay there, but unfortunately he was making like $35 million a year.
Yeah.
At the same time, Dame was making like $40 million a year.
I don't feel too bad for him. He's still, although New Orleans doesn't like great city, but not a good basketball city. Which
The greatest.
Is, I mean,
the greatest.
It's one of the best cities, though.
Yeah, it's probably my favorite non-Portland city, maybe in the
Really?
world, but definitely in America.
Because it's unlike any other city.
Completely singular.
Yeah.
That's what I love, and it's obsessed with itself, which I think every great city has in common. It's like New York. New Yorkers love New York so fucking much and think it's better than every other city, and they have a lot of arguments like in that favor. The people from Portland feel the same way about Portland. You know what I mean? I don't think there's like anyone who, if they live in Phoenix and they're being honest with you, or Sacramento or Orlando, you know what I mean? If they're being 100% honest, none of them are like, this is the best city in America. But like people in New Orleans will fight you over the fact that New Orleans is the best city. And they have a great argument. I went there and in October, and I ate so much that like my rings didn't fit anymore, and like my blood pressure went up a few points, and like I had gout afterwards. It was fantastic. It's everything I want out of a city.
Painful gout?
Dude, gout is the fucking. I have medication for it now, so it's like completely manageable and it's fine. Before I did, gout is the worst fucking thing that can happen to you, like as a dude. I think.
Wow.
That won't actually kill you. You know,
I don't know
mean?
enough
Like,
about it. I know it sucks.
You get it from all the best things in the world.
Yeah.
You get it from like fermented anything, so like alcohol triggers it.
Ugh.
Cured meats. Cheese, like
Oh
all
my
that shit. And what it is your body loses the ability to break down crystals of uric acid in your blood. So at your joints, these crystals get like clustered where your like veins get a little smaller around your joints. So like it happens in your toes and your knees, and it can happen in your elbows, and it just gets inflamed, and it feels like you're walking around on a broken foot, and it hurts like all the time. And they used to just not have a cure for it, and you would just have to fucking deal with it.
Damn.
Which is, dude, it fucking sucks so bad. But New Orleans is so awesome that it's worth having gout for like a few days afterwards.
It is awesome. It's a great city. They got the music, they've got the energy, they've got the, the Creole kind of, I mean, they've got a whole different thing.
Yeah.
It's like the Montreal, what Montreal is to Canada is kind of what New Orleans is to America.
Completely. Yeah. It's a French city like in America.
Yeah.
I had a blue crab beignet there. Like they put a savory thing in a dessert food, and it was so good that I just don't know how to talk about it.
On the menu, it should have said might cause gout. The blue crab
cause
beignet. This will give you gout.
May cause medical conditions. I fucking love New Orleans, but I'm not sure they should have an NBA basketball team.
They just don't care. It's a football town.
I don't think they care. I'm sure
They'd
there's
be better
fans
off with
there.
a baseball team than a basketball team, I think. And I know baseball's like failing as a sport, but like that's like more of a baseball. They love the Saints.
Yes.
They don't care. I mean, did you see the viral pic of when everyone was, I think it was during the beginning of COVID when everyone was grabbing anything they could from a grocery store, and or maybe it was a hurricane. I don't remember what it was, but the only thing left was Anthony Davis on lime ruffles. That was the only thing they wouldn't touch. They were like, "Fuck that guy."
Fuck, man. I think they should have a baseball team because that feels way more like the energy of New Orleans. Is showing up somewhere. Chill. Yeah, you can wear seersucker and fan yourself while a game unfolds over 3.5 hours. Yeah. I
love that city, but yeah, they don't care. And neither does Zion. Apparently he just reported to camp again, but I'm like, where the hell? This feels a lot like Kawhi Leonard to me. Where he's like, I'm gonna go with my own people. I think Zion will be a Knick, and I know I'm delusional because you're talking about like these cities that have insane egos that might be unearned. And let me tell you something, man. I relate to that. We New Yorkers, we always think players want to come here, and they never do.
They haven't forever.
I don't understand why we keep thinking we're going to get him. But Zion lit up at the Garden. He lit up talking about MSG. He loves RJ. They were roommates.
I hope you do get him. I do hope you do. And I'm sorry to New Orleans. It'll like I love it. They don't. I don't think they care. They like, if that team was in Seattle, the people in Seattle would be so grateful for all the people on that team. Brandon Ingram, people would like give a fuck about Brandon Ingram.
Seattle deserves a team. We need another team. Let's get a Seattle team.
They should either move the Pelicans or expand and get Seattle a team.
Seattle
Brandon Ingram would be.
Else? What's the other city we got? We got
Vegas,
get a team.
Maybe, or like
Vegas.
I don't know. What is there like a town like Nashville? Is there something in like Tennessee?
Nashville's a big city. I wonder if they have. Well, there's the Memphis. There's the Grizzlies, right?
But, the Grizzlies. Yeah.
Nashville's a bigger city. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know where in the South. Like, it feels like you'd need one like in the South or something like that. If they had one in Vegas, you could go and have like an NBA basketball game be part of your trip to Vegas. Which
that's true, but then you have like kind of whatever fans. I feel like.
Yeah, although they're apparently the Black Knight fans. Is that what the Golden Knights, the Vegas hockey team, are apparently like great fans? Because there's all these people who live there. And
there's locals in Vegas. So I've never played the local scene. I've always played the scene that's like, get me the hell out of here. But maybe you're right. Vegas and two West Coast teams, I guess.
If an NBA basketball team can exist on the same level as like Cirque du Soleil's O, like if that can just be their reason for existing, like one night you go see the Beatles Love and the Great Pretenders, and the next night you go see like the Orlando Magic play the Las Vegas Pelicans.
Just make sure you like your trip the right night and you're good.
Yeah. The basketball night you should shroom if it's going to be the Magic.
Watch whoever. Yeah. What about I think Zion's going to come. I don't know if you saw the Knicks game against, or at least the highlights from the Knicks Phoenix the other night. It was like the most heartbreaking. I knew we were going to lose, and I've kind of accepted. I want us to tank now, so I follow a lot of Knicks fans on Twitter, and they were like losing it, and people were trolling me. They're like, I'm getting DMs on Instagram from people, like, ha, you piece of shit, fuck the Knicks, just people trolling me. And I'm kind of like, I don't care. I want them to tank. I want to pick.
Absolutely.
But it does hurt to lose like that because Julius has been playing like shit lately. RJ's been keeping us afloat, at least respectable. Julius is having a night. He's lighting up the Phoenix Suns. They don't have Booker or Paul, but they're still a really good team without those guys.
Bridges and Ayton, yeah.
Oh, man. And their bench guys, Cam Johnson hit 9 threes on us.
Yeah.
And Julius Randle is like gets into it with Cam, pushes him. And, Julius has gotten criticism already this year for giving the Knicks fans the thumbs down. I've had friends, say things like, he's not built for New York. You can't do that to the fans. You got to know the fans are going to, like, they love you, but they're going to hold you accountable.
Of course.
And he pushes him. He gets ejected from the game. And Cam Johnson ends up hitting 9 threes and banking in a game winner to win by 1.
Why are you beefing down like that? What is he doing?
It's not, I've said this about Julius. I think he's a part of the future, but I don't think he's a leader. I just don't, that's not what leaders do, man.
He needs to hold himself to a higher standard than beefing with Cameron Johnson. If you're going to beef with anyone, you beef with Cory Booker or Chris Paul when they're back. You're the team's best player. You don't beef with their,
I like that you slipped it. You
guy.
said Cory Booker instead of Devin Booker because I like
Did I say Cory Booker?
Yeah, I like picturing him just throwing Cory Booker, and Cory Booker's like, "What the hell did I do?"
Just showing up to on dates with Rosario Dawson and shit like that, tweeting out pictures.
I followed Cory Booker once on Fallon, and it was it might be the worst late nights that I've ever had because I can't follow Hope. But it was awful. He was very, and he was, you know what? I will say this about the guy. He was the nicest damn guy. I know it's his job. He's a politician, but my family's there. And, my mom is like, Mr. Booker, what you've done for New Jersey is so admirable. And I could tell he's just like, oh, I'm getting votes right now. Let me work this. And he hung for like a hot 30 minutes where I was like, this is like a little long.
That is a little long.
It was a little long.
I feel like I saw a tweet the other day that it was someone saying it boiled down to there's no politicians who could be a stand-up comedian or stand-up comedians are better than politicians. And I don't know that Cory Booker could be, but I feel like there are a lot of politicians.
Yeah, they can learn it
easily because they're the most charismatic individuals. I know
George
about all
Bush
that.
Could have learned it. George Bush
he
would have
gotten
fantastic.
Laughed
by mistake.
Donald Trump was, if he would have been a phenomenal stand-up comedian. And in
he
fact,
could have been Rickles.
I think he kind of just ran his entire career as a president just being a stand-up comedian. Very little would have changed. Bill Clinton, I know the Clintons are fucking awful and Bill Clinton is a terrible person. We were interviewing Hillary Clinton over Zoom on our show and Bill Clinton popped in. He had just been out in their garden and had a basket full of vegetables and just leaned into the frame and just popped in to talk. I don't even think it made the TV. And he was so fucking, because it was after the interview was over, he was so charismatic that within 15 seconds, me who was pushing for Bernie, you know what I mean, in the primaries and all this shit, I was I love him. That's exactly what America needs right now. Him, Bill Clinton, you know what I mean? I was eating out of his hand like a man from Hope, Arkansas. They're so fucking charismatic.
Absolutely.
That,
even Bernie, who's
even Bernie.
Bernie could have been a Richard Lewis type of stand-up,
They kind of are stand-up comedians where there's there's no one definitive way to do it, but when someone has it or they don't.
For sure.
Yeah, when they have
Huckabee would have been a blue collar tour type of guy,
He would have been huge. He would have had a
Bill
catchphrase.
Engvall.
Huckabee seems like he would have been happier if he had gone into stand-up comedy than politics.
For sure. He wants laughs so badly.
If those guys just would have joined a slightly different club freshman year, the world would be such a better place.
My friend Baratunde Thurston, who is he's a pretty political guy, and he has nothing in common with Mike Huckabee, but he told me 10 years ago he did a thing. It might have been more. It might have been 12 years ago. He did a thing where Huckabee tried stand-up, and he goes, I'm not going to lie, he wasn't horrible.
Of course.
He had a ton. He's so charismatic live. He knows how to work. I mean, he'd have a lot of I used to be fat jokes. He'd endear himself to a crowd.
Absolutely. He would. I feel like if you took Mike Huckabee's brain and put it in the body of a 20-year-old, he would be, he would have a huge fight. He'd be on Letterman, not Letterman, fucking Fallon within 6 months.
Yes.
Absolutely.
For sure. Yeah, Elizabeth Warren, she'd be an alt darling,
Complete. She'd be out. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You see Elizabeth Warren at Largo? She was some stuff.
Apparently Judd Apatow's doing an Elizabeth Warren show or something like that. I don't know. It's weird. I saw her on Lance Bang's Instagram.
I wanted to ask you about for the Julia thing killed me because I was that was just brutal. But what are you gonna do? I am hoping we lose at this point. But are there any playoff matchups that is there a team you're pulling for in the playoffs? And are there any matchups you're because your team, it is almost liberating to be out, right? Because you're kind of so
liberating.
You just kind of enjoy it.
By the way, we're not out yet with the fucking and I want us to be out.
Well, what are you? You're 10th?
We're 10th. We sat we sat Nurk with some injury. You know what I mean? Like plantar fasciitis or whatever fake. Like because we won 4 games in a row with like this is the weird thing about fucking Blazers fans, man. Like people are getting stoked about like Trendon Watford and Drew Eubanks now. Like all these fucking people we brought in, and it's like just watch some other teams for a couple. But whatever. I'm glad we're so loyal. But God, we're not out of the playoffs yet. We could still be in the fucking play-in tournament, which is disgusting.
Lakers or Clippers, a lot of tough teams.
Yeah.
I wonder when Paul George comes back. But man, that Clippers trade. Were you? How do you feel about losing Covington and Norm Powell to the Clippers?
Great. I didn't love what we got back. I didn't love what we got back in that or in the. I think Justice Winslow is like an interesting player, but so has weirdly Justice Winslow is just the new Robert Covington. Except at least Robert Covington did have one season where he was like an effective player, but it's like. I think Justice Winslow and Robert Covington are the same, like, ooh, maybe he just needs to change the scenery types players. And then when you get them on your team, you're like, okay. This is like,
but
not
Winslow's just like, I feel like he just needs a jump shot.
Something, man. Yeah,
Something.
He just needs a jump shot. But like, he's good on defense. He's been like an effective player for us in the limited role like he's been asked to have. But like, yeah, I felt good about the Clipper trade because that Norm Powell contract was like they put so much money and faith into maybe this will work out around Dame. You know what I mean? Like with trading 2 firsts for Robert Covington, signing Norm Powell to this insane contract, you know, and trading Gary Trent Jr. for him, who's like a fan favorite and an exciting player. Like they were.
Why did they do that? That was such a bad trade.
It was such a weird trade, but I think like also because Gary Trent Jr. was like at least like 6'5", you know. But
and
he
was so good.
I think they thought they couldn't keep him, and they thought they were going to be able to keep Norm Powell, which they ended up doing before they traded him. But like I feel like they were like trying to build this team around Dame that was like if Anthony Davis gets hurt and if Chris Paul gets hurt and if Klay Thompson doesn't come back and isn't effective and like all these ifs, kind of the same way they got to the Western Conference Finals that year where they're like trying to catch a break. They're trying to be like the team that benefits from all these injuries. And they were like, let's just fucking toss out all this, give Norm Powell this money, trade 2 first picks for Robert Covington, like whatever the fuck we need to do to give ourselves a puncher's chance kind of thing. And I feel like the Clippers trade and the CJ trade were like admitting that didn't work. And it was like you said, there's a relief in that was like really nice. Because that Norm Powell, like we're paying him so much fucking money.
So much
He's going to be a good player for the Clippers, but now I feel like the Clippers are doing that same thing. They're more realistic because if Kawhi Leonard ever comes back and like plays meaningful basketball again, like that can be a really amazing team.
They're dangerous.
Like,
they're
so
dangerous.
with those 2 guys and Reggie Jackson and
I like Reggie Jackson a lot.
He's great, man. I never would have thought that. Of all the like point guards who came out of nowhere, he's like my favorite one.
He's kind of crafty and he's got, you know, he hits a lot of clutch shots. He's kind of fearless.
He thinks he's one of the, he thinks he's like the best guy on the floor.
I love it.
You need a couple guys like that.
But so you don't like the Clippers, obviously. You don't like the Warriors. You don't like the Lakers. Like, who's a team in the West that you wouldn't mind seeing?
I hate them all. I hate all of them.
It's tough, right?
I know. I do. Do you feel like that in the Eastern Conference? Like, are there any teams you like?
It's tough to admit because I grew up hating the Miami Heat because of, you know, the 90s and Riley and everything. But I really like how they play as a team.
Yeah.
I enjoy watching them. I love Lowry and Hero and Butler and Robinson and Martin and Bam is incredible. I mean, they're just like a good team. I like watching Milwaukee a lot.
Yeah, Milwaukee's great. I was watching them today. They were really fun.
That was a good game, man.
It was.
I love watching Brooklyn, but I hate the team, but I love watching them.
I love watching like Memphis play. I think watching John Morant is like fucking me. I love watching Luka. I like from just a pure basketball perspective. I love watching Jokic. I don't want to see any of those teams win a championship.
So who are you kind of like?
I want them to call it off.
Who are you kind of rooting for?
Nobody. I don't know what in the past this wouldn't be the case. I don't think.
Sure.
I think I would have been like, oh, it would be nice. Like when Nowitzki won with Dallas, I thought that was nice. You know,
I think that's kind of why I'm pulling for Phoenix because I want Paul to get one.
I was about to say, I think Phoenix is the one team where I could see myself actually being happy for someone else from the West. Everyone else with like the teams that are good, I'm like, how fucking dare you have it all work out? You know, like, and for the teams that are young and hopeful, I'm like, how dare you be young and hopeful? Like when fucking Greg Oden played 82 games over the course of his career. Yeah, and Brandon Roy's fucking bone on bone in his knee. Just like, I think like in the last year, like I've never been a bitter Blazers fan, and I think it's starting to catch up with me.
Oh, dude, I was so bitter for so long, and now I'm just kind of like, I just want other fan bases and players to be happy. I don't want them to be as miserable as I am. So I think, I mean, with the exception with like, I can never root for Boston, but I got to admit, I love what Ime Udoka has done. He's clearly a good coach.
Especially after all the shit he got earlier in the year. People were like, fuck Ime Udoka. I knew he was going to be good because he went to Portland State University, which just turns out winner after winner.
And is married to Nia Long, which is
come on.
That's a big one.
If you're like a journeyman NBA player and you marry Nia Long, you're a confident man. You're a confident, intelligent man.
For sure.
Yeah.
And he also, I think Marcus Smart is also like the dude who, he's like kind of the glue in a weird way where like, that guy will talk shit in the locker room and say stuff that the stars don't want to hear. And you kind of like, yeah, you need that dude.
And he's been like, right. Cause he's been there longer than them. And like, he's probably pretty fucking, you don't want to talk back to him, Marcus Smart.
Dude, he's one of the last dudes I'd want to fight in the league. He seems like he would bite your face in a fight.
You remember when he was at Oklahoma State and that fan in the stands yelled something racist at him, I'm sure, and he like got up in that dude's grill? Do you remember that?
I don't remember that. Wow.
It was fucking amazing. And I think he got suspended because he like went after one of the fans. But like I saw that and I was like, this guy's fucking great. He like, because you forget because they're on TV. You're like, that dude's 18. And he just got up and got in the grill of some like adult sitting courtside at Oklahoma State. So you know he's got like $15 billion in fracking money. You know, he's just some rich piece of shit kind of thing. And Marcus Smart just got like right up in his face. It was fantastic.
Dude, he's the dude I always wanted in New York because he like had that 90s Knicks mentality that we all desperately miss. And
he would be fantastic. You know what? Like who do you think are the most New York Knicks players in the league right now?
Who don't play for the Knicks?
Who don't play for the Knicks?
Jeez,
and this an idealistic New York Knicks roster.
I mean, Draymond is the first that comes to mind because he's like New Yorkers would appreciate his toughness, his savvy. He's a second round pick, so that underdog stuff is big. I mean, I think Pat Beverly is a guy New Yorkers would embrace. I mean,
Pat Beverly might play a game in Tim's if he went to the Knicks.
But I mean, Joakim Noah was a dude, like we got him too late, but he was a guy I was dying for in his prime.
He would have been perfect.
Same with Sheed. We got Sheed too late too. He was another one.
Listen, he's my favorite Blazer of all time. But he was never a Portland guy. It was very weird. Like, he was because like he fit on that team so well, but like as far as like man match his city, he wasn't passive aggressive. He was aggressive. Yeah. I think Jimmy Butler. Yeah. For as country as he is, like in real life, his personality and everything, like the way he plays, like I feel like Madison Square Garden would fucking eat that up with a spoon. Like if you had a team that was like Marcus Smart, Jimmy Butler, Draymond, and then just like throw in whoever, and they won a ring for the fucking Knicks.
Who I really wanted, and Stav gave me a ton of shit for this, but a guy I really wanted on the Knicks was DeJounte Murray.
Oh, yeah.
Like, all year, because he's just like, I just want a point guard that plays D. I want I think I grew up on like Derek Harper, who was just a bad dude on defense. He would just he wasn't that athletic by the time he came to the Knicks, but he would just strip you. He would use your body against you. I love a big point guard. So.
You knew you played. You knew you were done. You knew you had played a basketball game afterwards. You know when you had played like someone like that. DeJounte Murray's fucking great. He's like another one of those dudes where like he's doing all this great stuff in San Antonio. He could be doing this now, or he could be the third best player on a team that wins the championship. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
If you just shifted where he was, like if he was on the Lakers, that would fix all their problems. He's like one of those players, you know?
That's such a good point. I mean,
yeah,
these are all guys that would be great. I mean, RJ Barrett, really, I love him. I really think he is the city. Like you either need to be aggressive in New York or you have to be chill as hell. And he's chill.
Yeah.
He's unfazed for a young guy. So I love him. He stays disrespected in the league. There was just the Athletics just did a top 43 players under 25, and he wasn't on it. And I was like,
how was he not on it?
They had guys on it who I forgot some of the names, but they really disrespected RJ. And but he's always been that way. He's always been. I don't think he was on the all-second rookie team his rookie year. I mean,
I think you're right. Yeah.
He always gets disrespected, and he's been on fire since December. Like, he always starts late, but I love him.
He was one of the players, like, when they were talking about the Knicks trading for Damian Lillard, where they were like floating RJ Barrett as one of the players, and I was like,
I said hell no.
All right, you think no? Yeah.
Well, just because I don't think we have this enough to win something with Dame in the next few years.
That's the Damian Lillard problem,
right?
Is that any team that trades for him is never going to be able to give enough up,
except for Philly, if they
except
did.
For Philly,
but you wouldn't have been happy with Simmons.
Well, yeah, probably not. I mean, yeah. It would have had to have been Simmons and Maxey and picks. You know what I mean? Like, it would
they
have
wouldn't have done that.
They wouldn't have done. Yeah. But I feel like the Damian Lillard, like, he almost has to leave in free agency if he ever wants to go somewhere and win a championship.
And that's like, a while, right?
Yeah. That's like 5 years, 4 years. Like, I don't know where you can trade him that's going to give up enough for him to then win a championship.
Who's a guy that you would kill to see in Portland to play with Dame?
God, I always thought that like somebody like Kawhi Leonard or you know what I mean, or like Paul, like even a Paul George type. You just need somebody who, after Damian Lillard's player, whoever he's guarding, blows by him, can like move over on help defense, and then all of a sudden there's like a big 6'8" guy. You know what I mean? Like with his arm out, who
he's
can like
perfect.
Get
Paul George
way.
Is perfect.
Paul George would have been, still would be, like the perfect player to play next to Damian Lillard. Like he would have been a better version of like Nicholas Batum. You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of guy who like needs to play with.
Who's had a nice another chapter in L.A. A lot of people thought he was washed. He's balling. He's been great for them. He's a smart player. That guy. He's
really smart. He's a. If you put, I feel like those French dudes, and maybe this is generalizing, but like he's kind of had like a Boris Diaw thing. Because do you remember when Boris Diaw ended up on like Charlotte, and like he put on like 40 pounds and like was terrible, like one of the worst players in the league, and then he ended up on like San Antonio like the next season, and he lost the 40 pounds, and he was like an effective player,
right?
And you know what I mean? It was like all of a sudden like enjoying basketball again. Like, I feel like the exact same thing happened with Nicholas Batum, where he was in Charlotte and he was like, this team isn't going anywhere. I'm not going to fucking.
And he got paid.
And he got paid so much money.
One of the worst contracts.
Awful. But now he's in LA again and like a useful player because he's like, oh, this team might actually do something, you know, like at least at the beginning of the season before everybody got hurt. And like, I think like a player who approaches a situation differently depending on how well it might go, which I sympathize with.
Yeah, he's Diaw, I think, got a bonus for losing a certain amount of weight or not gaining it back or something. There was an incentive aside from just winning. But Diaw had a great NBA career.
He's fantastic. Someone like him would be great in Portland too. Like someone who can move the ball around but like play the post. Because Nurk is great and he's been having an amazing season, but like I don't know. You need faster post players when Damian Lillard is your point guard. When you have like such a defensive liability at point guard, like
right, or you just, like a better defender, right?
You need people who can clean up the defensive lapses. You know, we just have never really had that on the team.
I hate the Celtics, but Robert Williams is really good. He's a really good player.
He's a really good player. He's so athletic.
I don't know what the Knicks are going to do with Mitchell Robinson because they can't reach an agreement. He's never like that healthy. His numbers,
Yeah.
like he's one. I feel like it's one where you're paying for potential, and like you kind of can't roll the dice when you paid Fournier all this money and he hasn't been what you hoped.
That's the problem. That's like what it seems like is going on with the Knicks is like they had that let's not spend a bunch of money on, you know, they had that the whole Leon Rose, like, okay, there's adults in charge of the team. They're not going to like pay a bunch of money just for a big name who's going to come in and like lock up all their salary, even though he's not that good. And now it feels like between Fournier and Julius, you know, and like,
I still think Julius is a valuable player, and his contracts, it's not like a max. It's not
no, it's not a terrible contract, but doesn't it feel a little bit like they're slowly getting themselves rather than quickly getting themselves, like they're still getting themselves into that kind of situation where all of a sudden there's no cap, but they're just doing it slowly rather than like dropping it all on Westbrook?
Which scares me too, because you know the Lakers are going to part with him. In your head, you're like, well, where the hell is he going to go? Like, who's going to give him? Who wants Westbrook right now? I don't know any team that's like.
Who can even take it? Houston for John Wall? Like
do you think they should have
Washington
done that?
for Porzingis? Like it's all places he's been already.
Should the Lakers have done that? You think?
Yes, they need to get him out of there.
You think giving up another first round pick though?
I don't think the Lakers should have done it. I think LeBron should have pushed them to do it. Like,
but then what? Like that's kind of your last move. You don't even know if he's good either because he hasn't played all year.
Yeah, you have no idea. But I feel like he'd at least be bad differently than Westbrook, like in a less harmful way. You know what I mean? Because with Westbrook, you have the whole. If we move him to the bench, all of a sudden, I don't know. I feel like Westbrook is a good guy, is the thing about Russell Westbrook. I think he's like a good guy and like a cool, like off court, like a cool guy. I do get that feeling from him. I think his like on court demeanor isn't like, I don't think it's a 1-for-1 switch to like how he is off the court. So I don't know how he'd act if you moved him to the bench, but I feel like if you do, then you have this whole other like set of problems where with John Wall, I feel like you could bring him off the bench and he would like understand it at this point.
I don't know, dude. Wall's got, I think he's had an ego throughout his career. I think it's tough, but Westbrook, you're right. He seems like a cool guy, and I just wonder if he just adapted his game. I know he's never been a great defender, but what if he just like played a little bit more like Rondo or something?
It's the same what if though, that like it's every team. It's like, it's the same questions we've been asking ourselves about him for like ever. Like what if he could, the other sneaky thing about Russell Westbrook is nobody has played maybe in the entire history of the NBA with more of the talented players in the NBA. Like in his career, he's played with Kevin Durant, James Harden twice, LeBron James, Anthony Davis. You know what I mean? Like, and he hasn't made it work in any of the Paul George, like
wow, Melo.
So in his like entire
Melo twice.
Melo twice, right? Melo twice. His
actually
like,
3 times because of Houston, right?
Oh yeah, Houston, Oklahoma City, and LA.
Oh my
now.
God.
So he's been like he's been zealot. He's played with all of the best players in the NBA, and he hasn't made it work in any of those destinations. But his skill set and like what he's capable of is like so tantalizing. He's that like heliocentric basketball player. That's like the new phrase, right? That like people are using for the same thing that's been happening in the history of the NBA, where it's like the best player has the ball most of the time. Like he is that kind of player, but he's just never been good enough to win a championship being the best player, you know, like.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
I mean, but also, who would have thought the Lakers have Westbrook and Carmelo, and Westbrook is kind of the problem because of his contract, I guess is the big reason. Obviously, he's still a talented guy, but
Carmelo let himself be humbled a little bit. Or like, I mean, it was this or be out of the league. Right? Like it was.
He also became a shooter, kind of. He kind of was like, I'll be a standstill, because he's a great shooter. So he's kind of like, well, I'll just be a standstill shooter. And Westbrook, I watch them and I'm like, he's trying to do too much.
Yeah. He has one speed, dude. He has like one. There's
You're right.
There's no dial. It's just he's a binary basketball player,
He's 11 the whole time.
He's on the bench icing his knees, or he's a fucking like tornado full of fire axes, and like that's it. Like, yeah, I think he only has 2, and that's what made him so fun to watch as a basketball player. But I think ultimately is what is going to make him unplayable, before his like 35th birthday.
Yeah, I remember that series. It was OKC versus Utah. The series Utah won, the Joe Ingles, Paul George series. And I think about Ricky Rubio playing against Westbrook. And it's like, well, no one's going to say Ricky Rubio is better than Westbrook. Like, obviously not. But
yeah,
I was watching Rubio kind of shift and adapt. And Westbrook's just like pounding and pounding. You're like, man, sometimes you got to, it's like watching a dude, you got to adapt to you ever watch one of those comics when you're like, he's not addressing that he's bombing?
Yeah.
Well, you got to address that you're bombing to start doing well again.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You need to let them know
He's duct taped fucking hammers to his hands. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, that's great in a hammer fight, dude. But what happens when you need to like not hammer something? He's just like, and again, it's such a, I went to a game once where he was on the Thunder. They were playing Portland, and he dented his head. He like caught an elbow in his head or like hit it, and there was a dent. You could see it up on the Jumbotron. He had a dent, and he stayed in the game, and he finished it anyway. And it was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. He like when he like dunked so hard that like you feel like you felt it in your seats. It was like an amazing visceral experience watching him play basketball. And I always thought when it was over for Westbrook, it would be over the way it was over for like Derrick Rose, where it would be like crumpled up in an injury where you're like, oh shit, he'll never be the same. So I guess it's kind of just startling watching the end of Russell Westbrook be this like slow, shitty decline where he refuses to face reality.
Rose to me is the opposite. Rose, I'm like, he's been out for like 35 games for us. He's been our best player.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. Rose he was the only guy who looked good in the playoffs for us.
Yeah.
I love Rose, but I know what you mean, but I guess in the way of Melo, he kind of got humbled too, getting bounced around. But you're right. I mean, it's tough. But dude, thank you so much for coming on the pod. It's so good to talk to you, man.
My pleasure, man. Absolutely. Anytime.
Anything you want to plug?
No, watch the Late Late Show. Once we draft Chet Holmgren third, send me a Chet Holmgren Blazers jersey. I'm ready. I'm ready for all of it, dude. Yeah.
Watch the Late Late Show. You were hilarious when I was on that. It's cool. You're on every night now.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's been like I like backdoored my way into being our show's Andy Richter, which has been fantastic, man. It's fun. It's a fun place to like. I don't get to do as much stand up anymore because my job is like, 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day, 5 days a week kind of thing. But it's still like a way to be funny every now and then. So it's been fun, man. Thank you. It was great to see you over there.
Great to see you, man. And I'll be at the West Palm Improv this weekend and then Columbus Funny Bone the following weekend. I'll see you guys out there. But, dude, it was great talking to you, and I hope I see you again soon.
Absolutely. Go Blazers. Rip City.
They talk about us.